everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, and you are watching the CD Junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, I am going to be talking about COCTEAU Twins, a Scottish trio that created some beautiful music between 1982 and 1997. This was a band that's hard to describe. This was a video that was long in gestation because I didn't really know what I was going to say, how I was going to describe them, because just playing a medley, you can't just take a little snippet of a song and say this is what they sound like. Now their sound is very ethereal. It's called ethereal wave. Some people call it that. Some people call it dream pop. Another term I would use to describe COCTEAU Twins is shimmer pop. But the most distinct thing about COCTEAU Twins is Elizabeth Fraser's vocals. She does wordless vocals. She's not really singing words, and she's not singing her own language like so many people have said in the past. She's just using real words, real phrases, but she's also elongating vowels, or she's just singing vowels. And it's hard to describe, but it's beautiful to listen to. The early recordings sounded more gothic. I always say that COCTEAU Twins music is beautiful. I mean, it could bring tears to your eyes, just the way that everything comes together and just sounds so lovely. But when I say beautiful, it's kind of like Glinda from The Wizard of Oz. You look at her and you go, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful. But she was probably drinking, smoking, and gambling with the Munchkins backstage. But anyway, let's start here. 1979, the band formed. It was Robin Guthrie on guitar, and it was Will Heggie on bass. Vocalist Elizabeth Fraser didn't join until 1981. Then they signed to 4AD, and they put out the album Garlands in 1982. And this is the most gothic sounding of their albums. When I first heard this, I have to admit, I was not blown away because I'm Mr. Sunny Side of the Street, pop melodies, hooks. And this was melodic, but it was a little menacing. Sometimes you need to step away from the darkness and embrace the light. This had more darkness than light, but it was still quite lovely. And I know that this is a favorite amongst people who enjoy goth music as well. Sometimes when I think about some of the songs that I hear by COCTEAU Twins, I also think, early Cure with Kate Bush singing. But that's not right either, but I guess that's a step in the right direction. But after Garlands, which came out in 82, they released an EP called Lullabies. 1983, they put out an EP called Peppermint Pig. It's another thing. They put out a lot of great song titles. They put out an EP called Peppermint Pig that was produced by Alan Rankin from The Associates. Then after that EP, Will Heggie left the band, and Robin Guthrie and Elizabeth Fraser recorded the album Head Over Heels. Now, this came out, as I said, in 1983, and it was followed by the Sunburst and Snowblind EP, and pretty much like at this point, they started producing themselves. But Head Over Heels, this was a step in a lighter direction. I don't want to say that it was poppier, because it still had that menacing feel to it, but there was a lot more hope as well. 1984, Simon Raymond joins the band, and they released the Spanglemaker EP, which is followed by the album Treasure. Again, this is moving towards the light a little bit. Like I said, they weren't goth because there's so much beauty in the music. 1985, they didn't release any albums, but they released 3 EPs, and then they released a compilation called The Pink Opaque. And this was an American compilation that was sort of a best of, because up to this point, none of the albums had been released in America. So The Pink Opaque was kind of their introduction to American audiences. And I remember that album selling like crazy back in the day. 1986, they returned with Victoria Land. Now, this album here didn't feature Simon Raymond. He was involved with some other projects, so they went ahead and they recorded this album and released it. This is an album that didn't feature any drums. You can hear, I think, some tabla or bongos on it, but, we're talking ethereal pop. The music is just floating right by, and it's really, really wonderful. That was followed the same year by an EP called Love's Easy Tears, and at the end of that year, they collaborated with Harold Budd, the sort of ambient musician, and they released the album The Moon and the Melodies. If you are a COCTEAU Twins fan, definitely check it out. The great thing about COCTEAU Twins is it's music that you feel at the same time that you hear it. You know, it's permeating your skin, and it's dipping into your brain and ripping open your heart. It's just really wonderful. Then they leave 4AD and they signed with, I think, Capitol, at least here in the U.S., and they released Bluebell Knoll. And this was a step towards, I don't want to say commercial. It wasn't a big radical change. I think that label A&R people were able to sell it to radio programmers who were able to at least get it on some of the alternative stations. And this is an absolutely wonderful, wonderful album. And that was 1988. In 1990, they put out their next album, Heaven or Las Vegas. And this has some of my favorite COCTEAU Twins songs, especially the song I Wear Your Ring, which I think is one of the most amazing songs ever written. 1993, they put out the album Four Calendar Cafe. And this is wonderful, just like Heaven or Las Vegas. And also the same year, at the end of the year, they put out an EP called Snow. And it featured their versions of two classic Christmas songs, Winter Wonderland and Frosty the Snowman. And they're wonderful, actually. They have that shimmering sound that the COCTEAU Twins have had all their career. 1996, they released the album Milk and Kisses, and this was their last studio album. I think it's wonderful. It's even closer to a breakthrough, a commercial breakthrough. They could have gone top 40 maybe with the next album, but maybe they just felt it was time to give it up. And I will tell you, I've never wanted them to get back together because I think their catalog is perfect. There were two EPs that came out before Milk and Kisses. One was called Twin Lights and one was called Otherness. And one was kind of almost like a dance remix type EP. But the other one, which I think is Otherness, but had 4 acoustic versions of songs from their catalog. And they are stunning. I would love to have heard COCTEAU Twins going through their back catalog and doing acoustic versions of highlights like Sugar Hiccup and I Wear Your Ring and Cherry Colored Funk and all this amazing music, Ice Blink Luck. But sadly, they broke up. Robin Guthrie went off and did a bunch of music projects. Simon Raymond went off and did music projects. Elizabeth Fraser has not done as much out there, but there is stuff. I'm not going to cover that on this video, any of those solo projects, because the video's already long enough and I want you to hear the music. But before I go, I want to show you a couple compilations here. Stars and Topsoil. This came out in the year 2000, and this is kind of like the best of the 4AD years. So it goes from 82 to 90. So it doesn't have anything from like the last 4 albums. But you know how I was telling you about all the EPs that they've put out over the years? Originally, this was a 4 CD box, but then they broke it up into 2 double CD sets. And it's called Lullabies to Violin 1 and Lullabies to Violin 2. And they feature all the songs off the EPs, but absolutely fantastic. I've probably done a terrible job in describing this wonderful band, this shimmering, beautiful, ethereal band that every time I put them on, I'm whisked off to a different world. And I think a lot of other people do because they have a really solid fan base. So what I've attempted to do is I've created a medley. I don't feature a song from every EP, but I do throw some of those in. But I do believe that I feature a song off of every album. So sit back, relax, give this a listen, and I will see you on the other side. Well, I hope this inspires you to check out the music of COCTEAU Twins. Thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. Ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.